Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Jelarzak, product development and marketing coach and mom of three. Learn from and get inspired by women entrepreneurs killing it in the product space. Each episode, we will share the latest trends, proven strategies, and inside secrets of the product world, all designed to give you greater confidence to create your own success through a product venture. Let's do this. Selling can be simple when it's done the right way. So many productpreneurs and business owners have a hard time wrapping their heads around the selling part of their business. But selling is fundamental to any business, and it's important to master that sooner than later. This is why this episode is so necessary for anyone with a business. Today, we're welcoming Erika Tebbens, business strategist and coach for ambitious women and gender-expansive entrepreneurs who want to increase their impact and income without complex systems, sleazy sales tactics, or battling burnout. With over 15 years' experience running successful businesses, from solo operations to multi-million-dollar retail teams, she knows there's no one perfect way to operate, only one that's perfectly aligned with your strengths, values, and vision. Her mission is to empower entrepreneurs around sales and marketing so they can make a bigger impact and live life on their own terms. She's also host of the weekly podcast, Sell It Sister, and the creator of the no-sleaze sales method, which you can download at bit.ly/no-sleaze selling. We cover so many things, including the mindset needed for selling, her no-sleaze sales method and tips, her magic phrase to start a conversation or upsell, and so much more. Enjoy the episode and let me know how this episode helps you improve your sales. Thank you for coming. Welcome, Erika.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Nicole.
Can you start off by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, about your background, how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird story that is not a linear path. I never intended to be a business strategist and coach. In fact, until a few years ago, I didn't even know that was something that people could do or, that people would get paid to do. But about just over 15 years ago, my son was a year old and I was going back to work full time. And I had originally gone to school to be a high school teacher. And because we had moved, I couldn't teach in the state that we were in. And so I was like, what else can I do? What am I good at? And I'm like, retail, I could do that. But I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get paid well. And I'm going to be a manager because I like to manage people. And so I ended up working for Calvin Klein as a store manager just north of Seattle. And so I did that. And while I was there, we actually started opening a secondary location. So I had a staff. Even just our single store, I was leading over 40 people on my team. We were the 5th highest volume store in the country. And then by the time I left, I was also in charge of training all the managers for the West Coast stores. So busy, busy, busy. I had a toddler. My husband was in the Navy at the time. He was deployed. Life was kind of crazy, but I really loved it. The hours were a nightmare, but I loved selling and I loved leading. And it was fun hitting those sales goals and everything. But when the Navy moved us again from Seattle to New York, I was like, I cannot do that. He was going to be on a really difficult work schedule. Our son was 4. We had no family around. And so I was just sort of like, I'm going to get out of that world of retail or retail management. And I ended up working very part-time for the organic vegetable farm where we got our produce. So we got our CSA share. So every Wednesday afternoon and Saturday morning, I'd go to the farmer's market and I would help them sell produce. And it was already a successful business, but my boss was really receptive to new ideas. And so I was like, hey, I have some thoughts on how you can easily sell more and grow your business. And he was like, sure, okay, yeah, let me know. So what I ended up doing was I became his market manager, which meant that I was in charge of visual merchandising at the markets, and we sold year round. I was in charge of hiring, staffing, training, all of this stuff. So I taught them this whole sales protocol and everything, and we got that business up to $500,000 in revenue a year. So I know people think farm and they're like, oh, a little like podunk farm and struggling farmer, but like, no, we did really well. And then kind of by accident, I ended up having a successful career in direct sales for about 4 years. So I was a leader, I had a team, I was one of those people who like earns the free trips, all of that. And I really credit my success in that to the fact that I already had a really strong business and sales and marketing background from my other experience. So at the end of 2016, I was pretty burnt out, and the structure of my previous business was such that like I really couldn't scale it. And I really had it like relied on me showing up and selling in order for me to make money. And I was like, it's just not going to work long term. And so I started to get curious, like, what could I do? And, what am I good at? And all of that. And I was like, you know what? I love helping my friends who start businesses. Like, I love leading my team and like teaching people how to have their own business. And then my other friends who just started businesses, like, I love talking to them, and I would do it for free. And it was so fun. And I was like, do people actually get paid for this? And then lo and behold, they do. And so in 2017, so almost exactly 3 years ago, I completely closed my other business. Like, it was successful, it was doing well, but I'm somebody like, I need to focus on one thing at a time. I closed that business. I moved over to strategy and coaching, and I've never looked back, and it's been the greatest. But in that process, like, then I realized, oh, people need help learning how to sell. And so that's how I got to where I am.
Absolutely. I think it's such a huge skill to learn. And for any business owner, it's so important, especially for product business owners. And it's amazing how you went from teacher to your experience in sales, and then you're back to sort of a hybrid of the two, teacher, coach,
Mm-hmm.
and sales strategist. So super, super cool. And how did you come up with the idea for your business? Did you kind of just say like coaching, that's where people need help?
So what's really funny actually is when I started, I was like, oh, what's my focus going to be? And one thing I'm really big on is customer experience. Like, from the world of selling products, which is what I had been doing, it's so much about the customer experience. And like part of what I had gotten really good at Calvin Klein was we had at the time secret shoppers. So it was like you had to sell, and you had to be, or you had to give really good customer service as you were trying to sell. And you had to be super consistent because you never knew when that person was going to show up. And so I had to teach my team, and like our store had never got 100% in any quarter. We were like graded quarterly. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to do this. Like, I was hell bent. And so we actually did. We had a whole year, 4 quarters consecutively where we got 100 on our secret shops. And I was like, so focused on like everything is about customer experience, because if people have a good experience, they become a raving fan, they come back again, they tell their friends, it's like free marketing. And so my big thing when I started was I was going to give people customer experience strategies. And as I started having conversations with people, they were like, yeah, that sounds awesome and whatever, but I don't even have enough clients. Like, there's not enough people for me to service. And so I was sort of like, all right, well, this is interesting. Like, let me think about this for a bit. And I realized that what I had been overlooking was the fact that like, I don't mind selling. And so I was assuming that other people also felt okay selling,
Mm-hmm.
and then just needed to like have more repeat and referral business. And so I kind of like went back to the drawing board, and I was like, wait a minute, why do I not hate selling? Like, what is it that I'm doing that makes us not feel awful? And could I and should I be teaching this instead? So that was maybe like 6 months in that I realized that. And then I created some of like my assets and everything around selling, and I started talking about selling, and that was when my business took off. So it was something that
Mm.
like I was doing that it didn't even occur to me that other people needed to actually learn how to sell to propel their business forward.
So in your journey, did you ever feel that feeling like most people feel sleazy or pushy or kind of icky when they sell? Did you ever feel that way? And then did you turn a corner or were you always kind of a natural?
So I think the difference is like, so my first job ever was at a tuxedo sales and rental store. I was 15 and we got paid like super small minimum wage at the time back in like the 90s. And then uh, also got commission. And I was like, well, I don't want to just sell to like make extra money. That doesn't feel very like ethical. But I realized that like we would always advertise these like rentals for $39.99, but that was like bare bones, whatever. And truly, like the upsells were better things. And so, just sort of organically, as I would be helping people, I would say like, well, the like full back vest, like if you take your coat off, which you probably will at some point in the evening, the full back vest it just looks nicer. And it's only like an extra $10 something. Or like, if you want this other type of shirt, like that's only a $5 upcharge. Like all these little things where I was speaking very genuinely and very sincerely. And if there was something that I didn't think that they needed, I'd be like, you probably don't need that or whatever. If like, especially if you're on a budget, like let's find a workaround. But I really cared about going above and beyond and like making them happy with their purchase. And in that process, it just so happened that I also made more money doing it. But it was like, wasn't really, like I didn't care about tuxedos. I wasn't going to wear a tuxedo. It wasn't my company. It didn't really matter to me. Also, I was in high school. Like I didn't have that many bills. I didn't need that money incredibly bad. So it sort of made it a bit more objective. And then same thing like at Calvin Klein or any of my other jobs where I was selling, if somebody said no, they weren't actually saying no to me. So it was kind of like, okay, they're just saying no. Like I could look at it without judgment. And
Mm.
so I think that that is really the key is when we are selling something in our own business, we really wrap up the yes or no as like a value judgment against us. And it could just be that like the thing you're offering is not the right fit for that person, or it's not the right fit right now for that person.
Absolutely. And I think another thing you said was that you were looking at it objectively and you're thinking about the other person. And that's what I find. When you think about the other person, you take the pressure off yourself. It doesn't really matter whether they say yes or no. It's whatever's right for them. So you take that sort of
Mhm.
pressure and you don't think you're less self-centered. You're more centered on that person and their well-being, which makes it feel less sort of sleazy or pushy because you actually feel like you're helping them rather than helping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a lot more, it becomes a lot more about like serving them well than like serving yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And sort of, I guess we touched on this. So, what kind of mindset do you need for a shift in thinking in terms of selling?
Yeah, so I would say that it's really good to think about it like not everyone is going to be your ideal client, first of all, is one. Second of all, you have to really trust and believe that whatever you're selling is good for your ideal client, whether, like solve some sort of problem. So,
Mm.
whether that is like maybe you sell skincare and that like genuinely solves like what we normally think of as a problem, or maybe you sell like funny coffee mugs and like no you're not solving a problem, it's not like a capital P problem, but like what if somebody wants to start their day with like a hilarious coffee mug because it just like it gives them like a little chuckle or whatever. I think that that is, we have to believe in that thing that we are selling. And then also understanding a big one is that like a no isn't always like a no forever. It could always like it could sometimes be a like not right now. Like genuinely like a oh my gosh, that thing is amazing. I don't need to spend money on it right this second.
That's true. And it's hard to take sometimes, and then it's hard to come back to that person later on. And so how do you have any tips for representing whatever you were selling to the person who has said no?
Yeah, so I like to think about it in terms of what is like for your business. If I'm like working with a client and thinking about, even in my own business, what makes sense in terms of follow up, like creating a follow up schedule and sticking to it. So obviously, if you're selling at like a craft fair or something, you aren't going to just like call that random person that said no, thank you. But one thing you could do is say, oh, hey, if you want, you can get on our newsletter. We have coupons, or follow us on Instagram or whatever. And then sort of organically through that process, it's a bit more broad and a bit more like automated, but you are putting yourself back in their mind again and again. If it's something more like, let's say you need to reach out to a wholesale contract or something larger where you actually have like an individual touch point person, it's really good to just look at it and think like if they say, oh, we actually don't need that now, but we might need it in, Q1 or something, to make a note for yourself that's like follow up in Q1, and to even say like, okay, great, I will follow, if it's okay with you, I'll follow up in January, and kind of get that buy-in back from them. Or if they say like, oh, I'm just super swamped this week, you say like, okay, is next week better or next month better? Get that buy-in and then say, great, you will hear from me then, and then put it in your planner and follow up.
That's a good point, to set the expectation that you will follow up and the date so that it's not a surprise and you don't feel icky about following up. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great point. Do you have some top tips for selling? I know that you have a framework, so I'd love to hear about that framework.
Yeah. So I call it the no-sleaze sales method, and it's in my freebie. So if you go to bit.ly/no-sleaze selling, so it's all lowercase and all one word, you can get this overview. But it's very easy to remember. So it's the acronym SALES, and I will walk you through it. So this is really like if you're thinking about an actual face-to-face sales conversation, that is really what it's designed off of, but it can be tweaked and applied to other settings as well. So I'll just go through it first. So S is set the tone. So if you're thinking in terms of like, if you were to go into a boutique, you would want to be like, you would want to feel welcomed, right? Like maybe you don't want them jumping down your throat, trying to help you, but like just be all over you. But you would at least want to be acknowledged, like, hey, welcome. So if you are selling face to face, if you're on a discovery call, if you're at, a boutique or a craft fair or anything like that, just say hi, like welcome people, set a good tone. You can also do this like on your social media, on your website, just have a feeling of like approachability. And then A stands for ask good questions. So part of being of service of selling and being objective is not just overwhelming somebody with like, oh, here are all the options. You want to assist them. And the best way you can do this is by asking good questions. So again, if you just picture, if you were like selling somebody something face to face, if they came up to your table, you could say like, oh, are you looking for anything special today? Or, what can I help you find? And depending on what they say, it is going to take you to L, which stands for listen, limit, and lead. So A and L, you kind of go back and forth a bunch to really get to the crux of what it is they're looking for. And then you can limit and lead them to a solution to their problem. So this might be something like if they came up and they said, oh, I need like a bridal shower gift for my soon to be sister-in-law. Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, like, and if you have like, I'm just picturing my friend Jillian, who was one of my first clients. She sells like herbal skincare that she makes herself. And so she had all these different product lines. And you would say like, well, what kind of things does she like? Or like, are you interested in getting for her? Is this kind of like a lotion and like a foot scrub lip balm situation? Or do you think that she wants like, whatever, XYZ? Like, you just kind of have that dialogue. And then she might say like, oh, actually, I think that she would like a hand cream and a foot soak. Perfect. Okay. Well, I have three fragrances. So I have, a fruity, I have a floral, and I have an herbal. Is there one that you think she would tend to gravitate to? So again, you're just keeping on asking and you're listening. And it's almost like a flow chart, like you're leading them through. And then she might be like, oh, I think, definitely not fruity. She doesn't like sweet. And you're like, okay, great. Here, I'll let you sample these two. Like, you can smell these two options that I have here. Tell me which one you like. And then like you can just say, all right, I think what you should do is get the lavender, right? Like get the lavender like hand cream and foot soak. And then you just, E stands for expect the yes. So like you've limited the options, you've led them to a solution. And this part is really crucial because there's the saying, the confused mind says no. If you just say, oh, great, I have all these options here, which one do you want? Usually people will get overwhelmed and they will just say no rather than spend the energy to make a decision. So you want to, E stands for expect the yes, because again, you trust that you've helped them with integrity, you've done your due diligence, and then S stands for suggest. So you're going to suggest with confidence. And that would be where you could then say like, all right, I have these. And then, oh, just so you know, which this is like my magic phrase to like upsell. Just so you know, I have a special going on this weekend where if you get, these two items, you also get like a bath bomb for half off or something, or a lip balm for 20% off. Whatever that special is, because usually they will take advantage of it and it doesn't sound pushy. You're not telling them, you're not like convincing them or making them feel like they have to. You're just giving them good information.
I like that line, just so you know. And
Yeah.
I totally agree with the idea that a confused mind says no. Because if you're trying to sell everything, then people just walk away. They don't know what to choose. And you may not even know what to recommend to them. So it's very important to be clear to who you talk to. So I love that framework. That's really great. I'm going to just remember that as I do my selling personally, and I'm sure that, other product business owners will find that super helpful. Now, do you think there's a different way, or is the process different depending on your audience? So if you are selling to a retail customer or wholesale, a large chain, there's so many different types of audience that you can sell to. So is the process or the technique different?
Yeah, so I think that the key when it's like that, because that is more like if you are just selling direct to the consumer, obviously then that is B2C. But if you are going to like a wholesaler or a larger account, that is more B2B. So in that instance, you are going to like, you obviously have your ideal client for whatever your product is. But then what is crucial is to think about the wholesalers that would also serve your ideal client. So where it becomes kind of an issue would be, let's say that you sold, I don't know, like hair accessories for little girls or something. And they are like very chic and high end. You wouldn't necessarily want to ask around to every possible place that sells clothing for little girls. You would just be like, well, where are the places that the high end moms and like grandmas and stuff, where are they shopping? And then you can more easily make your case for why they need your product because you've done your due diligence to know that there's a better likelihood of them being successful when they stock your product. Vice versa, if you had a very like just casual, more like low end kind of offering, you don't want to try to sell it to the high end boutique. There's going to be a real like mismatch there. So you really, when you're thinking of like your ideal client profile or avatar, you really want to think about in terms of if you're pitching to get these larger accounts, you need it to make sense. Like it's almost like you're going through that process and you're saying, hey, I know what you need. I know that my clients also shop at your boutique. So this will be a win for you. If you say yes to me, like it'll be a win for the both of us. And I think that that is the difference. So kind of like, to use the world of direct sales, why selling often gets a really bad rap is in that world, people are often told like, just contact everyone with this same template and just sell to them in this very generic, impersonal way. And we can always tell when that is happening. So if you are just like, well, I've got this list of stockists and I'm just gonna reach out to all of them and hope for some yeses, you will not have as good of an experience or feeling as if you just looked for like, instead of pitching to 100, just look for the 10 best, the ones who are most likely to say yes to you and pitch to them with very clear messaging.
I love that. That's really important. And it's kind of the same idea of putting yourself in the other person's shoes, trying to do what's best for them. In this case, it's a wholesaler, and you're thinking about what's best for that store, that retail environment, and how can I help that buyer grow their business. So a lot of times they think about shelf space, and basically you're just going to take space from another product. So you also want to know, why is it that your product is so much better than every other product, and how are you going to grow their business? Because at the end of the day, they just want to grow their business. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to think about the other person, whatever it is, wholesaler, retailer, um, and buyer, whatever, whoever that person is. I agree. Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah. And I would say also make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. So have all your collateral and things like really clear and make it super, super simple. So if you, like, I had a client who she makes and sells soaps, and uh, she had a really great like wholesale list and everything. She had this very clear process of making it very easy when she approached new businesses to say, this is my process, these are the prices. Like, so it, again, like there was less confusion on the part of the buyer. So it was easier for them to say, oh, sure, like we'll try it. We'll try it for 90 days and see and go from there.
That's a great point as well. What are your top tips for opening up a sales conversation? Because sometimes the introduction and just starting a conversation is the hardest part.
Yeah. So going back to the magic phrase, the just so you know. So like again, we all hate when you go to that shop and the person is just like, again, all in your face and won't leave you alone, and you're like, I literally just want to shop. So one thing that I love to do, and I've taught many, many people, and it works like a charm, and this is also a really great way to sort of like set your unique product apart, is if you say like, hey, can I help, if you're face to face, again, selling your product, and if you say, can I help you find anything today, or what are you looking for? What can I help you find? And if they're like, oh, I'm just, I'm just like looking around, you can also use just so you know at the beginning. So you can say, oh, just so you know, like I have a client who does like jams and jelly, like organic jams and jellies and stuff. Oh, just so you know, all of my jams and jellies are made with local as possible, organic produce, and they are all low sugar because that gets a dialogue going again without being weird, right? Like you're not being weird, you're not making this assumption that they're going to spend money with you. But what it does from the customer point of view is it like they're like, "Oh, really? Like, huh, that's interesting. Like low sugar, like like low sugar jams. Do they taste the same? Do they taste like as good? Or what you're like, oh, do you like it's all local stuff? Do you grow it? Or sometimes people will say like, oh, do you make them all yourself then? Or like people have assumptions about what we do and what we sell. And that way, like she can say, like, yeah, so I live about an hour from here. I make them all myself, blah, 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 and again, it just keeps them, the more that you can get people to be talking and having that dialogue with you, the more it makes them comfortable with you. And when people are comfortable with you and they feel trusting, they're more likely to say yes. And again, it doesn't feel like you're pitching to them. So something that like I would do is if I'm like, since I help other entrepreneurs, like I would just say like, tell me a little bit about your business. Like, what do you do? Like explain it to me. Who do you serve? Like, what do you love about your business? Like just have that open conversation that just puts people at ease. I feel like just being just like a real human, it's shockingly so different than what we normally experience
Mm-hmm.
that it helps people relax a bit and just feel super comfortable with you. And then that way, like if you are, maybe you're busy, you're helping like multiple people, you can just, if they're like, oh, I'm just looking, and you say you're just, and then you could also say like, oh, well, my name is Erika. I'm just going to be over here, like, tidying up or arranging things. But if you have any questions, let me know. Like, it's just no strings attached. Like, I'm here if you need me. If you don't, not a problem. I think that that is really helpful too. And same thing. Like, if you are calling around to wholesalers or distributors or opening up that connection, like you can just say like, who makes the purchasing decisions? Like, I would love to talk to them. Are you accepting anything new right now? Just again having a dialogue without like coming in hot and heavy with that pitch.
That's great. Love it. So to warm them up a little bit and break the ice.
Mhm. Yeah.
And something that you mentioned made me think of this. A lot of the conversations are starting or happening virtually.
Mhm.
So through email or through just visiting a website. Do you have any tips about how to bring them through the sales process in a virtual way, or is it different at all from in person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that what is essential is to make it as personal as possible. Now, you can make it easier on yourself of creating your own framework that you feel comfortable with, but then have parts where you personalize it. So again, if you're, looking and like I'm just thinking back to the town I moved from a few months ago, there was this really cute uh like a coffee shop slash like lunch eatery. And they also had like handmade goods and stuff that they sold that were like gifts, like let's say like candles or notebooks and just really lovely handmade items there. So that might be something like, oh hey, I stopped in last week and I got a latte and like a cinnamon roll and it was lovely and I loved the atmosphere and your staff was so fabulous. And I noticed that you carry handmade items in your shop. And I actually have a business selling XYZ. And I just wanted to know if you might be open to having a conversation about, taking a look at my products or trying a sample or whatever it may be. And then just saying, if you think that you would. You can reply here and then we can set up a time to talk. Something like that where that owner or whoever is like receiving that email knows that you actually know something about their business and that you're not just sending out, again, a million cold pitch emails to every place around town.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So really making it more personal and relating to them, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
How about when
Yeah.
it comes to if it's your website and people are looking for a product and there's no person there to guide them? Is there any tip you have for that in terms of an e-commerce store? There's
Yeah.
nobody there. I mean, there might be a chat bot or something, but yeah, what would you say for that?
So I would say be really good with your top navigation and creating, doing that limiting and leading in the design.
Hmm.
So whether, like it should be in the drop down nav at the top. So like if you sold clothes, like it should be shirts, dresses, pants, whatever. And then you can also have some categories on the main homepage, right? That are like more bold. So let's say you sold children's clothing. So you could have like, infant, toddler, and then under 10 is like with like really great images of like people, kids and babies like wearing your product and having that organized there. And then that can take them over to another page that it's okay, infant. And then on that page, you have it broken out into, onesies and socks and whatever. So almost imagining like if you were walking into a store as that customer or, hopping onto your website, like if they were trying to do this for themselves, how can you make it as easy as possible for them to find what they're looking for and also get inspiration? And then I know that there are different like plugins and attachments and stuff that you can do that will replicate the just so you know, that will say like, oh, like most people who buy this also buy this. Or like, if you're getting the top, like just so you know, we have a matching like shorts or something like that. And or if you offer free shipping over a certain amount, like let's say the person gets to the cart and they didn't realize that they only need to spend $10 more to get free shipping, or they didn't realize that one of the t-shirts in their cart is actually like a BOGO half off. So
Mhm.
you can set those things to say like, hey, just a reminder, just so you know, if you do this, then you can get this. And so just having that kind of automate and digitize that process is really helpful, because even though we know, like especially with free shipping, like we know what they're doing, like it's totally obvious they're getting us to spend more money so we can get free shipping, but we are addicted to free shipping. So
Mhm.
like you can ask anyone, and like I feel like 90% of people would say if they had to spend more to get free shipping, if it was marginally more, they will do it, even though they know what's happening. And then same thing with like uh, the just so you know on promotions. If somebody doesn't take advantage of a promotion, we love saving money, even if it means spending more money. So a lot of times people, and it doesn't matter if it is in red flashing lights on your homepage that it's BOGO half on all t-shirts, people will still not notice it. So give them one last chance to take advantage of it.
Oh, cool. I love that. I love how you tied your process to an actual e-commerce site. And I love the just so you know analogy. The one thing I can think of when you enter a site is that it's not personalized to you. Is there anything that replicates that? I guess like a chat bot kind of would help, and then maybe quizzes, or is there anything you could think of that could sort of make it more personal to that person's journey?
Yeah, so a quiz can be really fun and can be really great, especially if you have different product lines that need to make sense for different people. So again, like going back to my friend Jillian, one of my first clients, she has different skincare lines for different types of skin. So she could create a quiz that takes you through what you might need on her site. So she has like, all different, like whether it's for certain face skincare or just overall like what they might be looking for. Like, are they looking for face? Are they looking for body or for like medicinal? Because she has some like salves and stuff like that. So, make it kind of fun, make it branded, make it, interactive so they can go through just a very brief quiz and it will tell them exactly like what you suggest for them. But the great thing is that you can also set that up so that they can put in their email and maybe get like a coupon they could use that first time. And then they're also in your systems. So you can retarget them later, you can email them later for other things, and it just feels very personal to them.
Cool. I love that. That's such a great
Mhm.
idea. All right. Awesome. And who do you admire when it comes to selling? Are there any books or resources that you'd recommend?
So this isn't quite selling, but it's a person who I think is going to change how you think about money,
Mhm.
which is going to impact selling. So Denise Duffield Thomas, she has several books that are all about money mindset, and she also has her newest one is called Chillpreneur. But she has the Money Boot Camp, which I've gone through multiple times, and I've read her books. And part of why we often struggle with selling and or with pricing is because we have limiting beliefs around money or money blocks around like earning money, accepting money, things like that. So when you kind of can deal with that, it will help you tremendously in feeling confident in both selling and also like being okay with maybe raising your rates or being a little bit more exclusive with where you have your products and all of these different things. Like I tell people, I'm like, if you could get like one course or anything that would help you as an entrepreneur, I really feel like Money Bootcamp is amazing. But she has other, for like $20 or under $20, money mindset books.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, what you said about money mindset so important because as we think about maybe raising our rates or thinking about the price of our products, I always find that we tend to think, oh, they're going to think it's so expensive. But that's just our own mindset that we throw onto other people and really has nothing to do with what they're buying or the value that they put on it. So it's such a good
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah, or we try to like, artificially discount at the end or different things. Like we
Hmm.
just don't need to do it, but we feel like, oh gosh, we have to, or they're going to be upset that they spent this money with us.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's so true. And what do you wish someone would have told you before you started your business?
I wish that somebody would have said, so when I switched over from selling products face to face to selling services online, I did immediately hire a coach because I was like, I need to figure this out. This is a different world than I'm used to. Um, I would say that really trust yourself and be confident in your expertise and what you bring to the table. And don't think that you have to be everything to everyone to be valuable. Like, you don't have to solve everyone's problems with whatever you are selling in order to be super valuable. So I think that is a really big one, and that like again, like not everyone needs to be your target market. And even if there are people closest to you that are not your target market, that does not make you a bad person.
No, that's so true. Yeah, I think with product businesses, they try some of them, I find my clients come to me with brand positioning and they want to come up with a product and they try to appeal to everybody. And then if you try to appeal to everybody, then nobody notices you and you just kind of blend in with everything else and you're just more like vanilla. So I totally
Mm-hmm.
agree with that. You've got to just hone in on who your audience is and what your product does for them.
Yeah, it's really like, and it can feel hard because, again, thinking back to that model that even if we've never been in direct sales or network marketing, like we know what it looks like. We've had friends or family members in it. And in that industry, it is really encouraged. It's like start with who you know and then work out from there. But that's not how it works in other business, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
you might have a really high-end product. Like I used to have a client who was a photographer, like amazing photography. She still used film, beautiful, but she would get really in her head because a lot of the people in her family and like friends she had grown up with did not understand how she was charging thousands of dollars for family photography. And I'm like, they are not your people. You need to get in front of new people because they will never get it. They literally want the person who has crap experience and is only going to charge them $100 and is going to give them a flash drive and like send them on their merry way. Like they are not your people, and that's okay. Like it doesn't mean you're a bad person. But I think too, like even one thing I will give myself self credit for, even in like my direct sales business, is I would not automatically discount for my friends. That is a big one. Like you do not have to discount just because they're your friends. Now, sometimes if I had like unused customer specials, I'd go out to my VIPs or my friends and say like, hey, I have 4 unclaimed customer specials this month. Do you want to add such and such bag on at 50% off and whatever? And people would take advantage of it, but like that overall, it just devalues your brand. And then those like once it's kind of like the was it yeah, oh yeah, JC Penney. Like a few years ago they tried their new model of we're not doing sales anymore. We're just doing low prices, and it totally backfired. And it backfired because they had trained their people to get used to using coupons and having promos. And even though they were technically spending the exact same amount of money from the customer end, it didn't give them that like rush that their clients were trained to get in like, oh, I saved so much money. That was
Mm,
off the table. If a new boutique or clothing store opened that just said, oh, we don't do sales, like I'm thinking about like Apple or
yeah,
Peloton.
right,
They don't do
exactly.
sales. Like,
Yeah,
so people aren't trained to wait till they have a sale to make the purchase.
that's
So
true.
when you discount right off the bat because you feel bad about charging, you will train people to only shop at a discount.
Absolutely. Yeah, when in consulting, I've helped different businesses, and a lot of times they turn to discounts and promotions, and then oftentimes those people are just looking for that next promotion, the next email, that next offer, and which one's better, and then they train their people to just look for those offers, and you're right, then just it devalues your brand. So good. So, yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to add, and any other stories that you'd like to tell?
Yeah, just I had a client who had a clothing boutique and it was the same thing, and like we tried to dig her back out of that, but her people were so trained for the sale that it made it really hard. So yeah,
Mm,
so don't do it. And I would say that like everyone can learn selling. It's just like with anything else. The more you do it, the more you're going to get comfortable with it. Practice with a friend if you need to. But it is possible to get better. And I have through like when you get on my list through the No-sleaze sales guide, I do have a slightly more robust sales course. It's super comprehensive, but it's very quick. It only takes like 2 hours tops to go through. And it's called Conversations That Convert. And it basically takes that no-sleaze sales framework and it takes you more in depth into each of them. And it has templates where instead of scripts, you get to write your own templates that you can practice from and that you can like tape to your desk or your office and look at. And again, not that you're like reading it verbatim, but just so you're more comfortable until you remember it in your head. Like now I don't have to think about it, just like with anything else, like riding a bike. Like you're really focused on it when you're learning, and then eventually you can just hop on a bike and ride. So so that is a good resource. And then also just my Sell It Sister podcast. I talk a lot about sales and marketing and mindset and all sorts of good business tips on there.
Okay, awesome. We'll include that in the show notes. And how else can people work with you?
Yeah, so definitely, regardless of if you work with me or not, come and say hi to me on Instagram. It's where I hang out. I'm at Erika Tebbens Consulting. I am a huge extrovert, so definitely like slide into my DMs and say hi. I would love to hear from you. And at erikatebbens.com, I have ways you can get in touch with me and look at my services. But right now, I really have 2 one-to-one offerings. So for entrepreneurs who are looking to scale up their businesses, I have my 6-month one-on-one, my revenue growth roadmap. And then I have a newer-ish offer that I'm super excited about for very booked up people who are looking to create their next big thing in their business. So it's called the Next Big Thing Intensive. And so that's a 2-hour intensive. And we go through everything from offer design to your low-key launch to even creating supportive workflows so that you're not working all the time. So yeah, that as of right now, just one-to-one is primarily how I work with people.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know that I learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. And we'll be seeing you and listening to you on your podcast and seeing more of you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you again for having me. And I love talking about this stuff.
That's awesome. We could tell. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Productpreneur Podcast. If you love this episode, we'd be so grateful if you could take a sec to subscribe, share it, and review it on Apple Podcasts. Your review will help more women build their own dream product business. By the way, if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, email me at info@nicoledelarzac.com. Until next time, keep dreaming up those product ideas.